You've got a strong topic for your literature review, but that's not enough. You need a research question, and you're going to learn how to write a great one right now. Hi everybody, I'm Leigh Hall from teachingacademia.com, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to navigate academia to make your best impact. Today, we're going to be talking about how you write a research question for your literature review, and having a well-crafted research question before you even go out and start getting data is super critical. You should not start your literature review until you've got a reasonably solid research question already written. All right, so why do we want a question, right? Why can't we just have a topic? Why can't we just have a problem? Why isn't that enough? So the first thing to keep in mind, and a lot of people don't realize this or forget about this, is that literature reviews are research studies. Are they? Where's my data? Your data are the articles that you collect to answer your question, and your question frames the study. So your question tells you what data is relevant and what's irrelevant, right? And so in terms of what you need to know to answer your question. So you've got to have a question. It is super critical, all right? But let's take a look at some examples of what goes into a question, because you want one that's very clear, very concise, easy to understand, and set some boundaries in terms of the kinds of data that you're going to be collecting. All right, so the first example up here, this first question is not a well-written question, but it is a good draft question, okay? How do teachers work with students who have learning disabilities? That's a nice draft question. If you brought that to me, if you brought it to class, or if I was your advisor, right, we could sit and talk about that. I could ask you some questions, we could work through it, and you could end up with a really solid question when you leave. So what I do want to show you is that the first question here, it's too broad. How do teachers work with students who have learning disabilities? If you look at the second, the revised version below that, what techniques have shown to be successful in improving reading comprehension for students with learning disabilities? You can see how that's refined. And we can even refine it a little bit further, and I'll tell you how in a second. So first of all, I'm talking about, okay, instructional practices and what techniques, okay, have been shown. I've replaced teachers with techniques just because it's a little more specific. What has been shown to be successful in improving reading comprehension, okay? So if you look at the first question, how do teachers work with students who have learning disabilities? It can be anything. It can be, how do I work with students who have learning disabilities around reading, around mathematics? I mean, it could be anything. And there could be writing, right? There could be dyslexia. I mean, okay, this can go on and on and on, and it's too big. And it's so big that it's not going to align. That first question is so big, it's not going to align with your research. So since I do literacy research, I would sort of frame it around, let's say, reading comprehension. And I could make it a little more specific. I might say for adolescents, because I do work with adolescents. And I could even maybe say for middle schoolers, right? This would sort of depend on the body of research. If there was too much research, I might say for middle schoolers, okay? If I said middle schoolers and there wasn't a lot of research, I might say adolescents. If I said adolescents and there still wasn't a lot of research, then I might say for students K-12, okay? K-12 might be how I end up defining it. But you can see how that second question is more refined. I can get started. And then as I get started, I might find that I have too much or too little data, and I need to think about my population, accordingly. So that's what I would do with that one. Now, for this one, I try to give a couple of examples that are outside of my field. So how often should people exercise? That's a really broad question. And what do we mean by exercise? What are the goals that we have for exercising, right? I mean, there's so many things that go into that. I revised it and wrote, how often should individuals exercise in order to improve their overall strength, okay? So now I'm looking at strength training, all right? And I'm looking at, well, if I want to do strength training, what does the research literature say in terms of how often I should be engaged in strength training, okay, if I want to improve my overall strength? There's likely some people are going to disagree on what that looks like, and that's okay. And I can talk about that when I present my findings. But you can see how it's more refined from how often should people exercise. I give it a specific goal, right? I want to know why people should exercise in order to do a specific thing, right? In this case, improve their overall strength. All right, and then last, I did a dietary question here. What foods should people eat to stay healthy? All right, now that might not seem too bad, right? Too broad, but I refined it a little bit more, and you can see that in the question below it. What foods do researchers recommend people consume regularly in order to lower their cholesterol, and what foods should be limited or avoided? So when you look at the first question, what foods should people eat to stay healthy? Healthy is a really, that's a construct and it's really broad. And what people think it means to be healthy is defined a number of ways. And I don't want to get into that. Okay. What I really want to know, what is it that I really want to know? Because there's going to be too much research, anyways, to answer question number one. I really want to know what the current research says about lowering your cholesterol, okay, or maintaining a healthy level of cholesterol if you already have one, all right? What are the foods that promote that? What are the foods that you should limit or avoid altogether? So you can see how that second question is a little more specific. It takes healthy out of that altogether, right? It takes that term out and it bounds it so that it becomes more manageable and more specific about the kinds of literature that I'm going to need to find to answer it. So if I try to answer what foods people should eat to stay healthy, well, I mean, there's not just cholesterol, right? I mean, you can think about blood pressure, right? We can think about salt intake. We can think about what does it mean? How many vegetables should I be eating? There are different diets, right? Like there's a Mediterranean diet, there's a paleo diet. Are you a vegan? Are you a vegetarian? I mean, there's all kinds of ways to think about healthy. And I'm going to be all over the map and it's not going to be productive for me, okay, doing a literature review. So if I can bound that a little bit, and I could probably bound this a little bit more, the second question even further, but it does give you a good example in terms of I'm going to bound it in terms of cholesterol and what it means to eat healthy in terms of having a good cholesterol number. Okay, so writing a research question, getting a good draft, a solid draft down before you start will help you know what kinds of data you're looking for. It'll also help you sort of know if you should tighten it up or expand it out. But you'll have a nice, good, solid parameter to be working within and making those decisions in. All right, so I'm going to see you over in the next video.